Ole Miss has a massive opportunity to do something completely special at the Pavilion today.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Hello, I'm Steven Willis, the host of the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. He is Michael Katz from the Northeast Mississippi Tupelo Daily Journal. Michael, before we get started, we talked a little bit off air, a surprise reunion of the Nirvana band members in Los Angeles. And somebody that's my age, I'm pushing 50, I'm getting there. This kind of hit me because Nirvana was when I was a junior in high school. So it means a little bit more.
Yeah, all the good stuff happens when I'm not in California. I just go there when it's on fire, apparently. But it's my understanding this was I think this was a benefit concert, right?
Yeah, it was called Fire Aid.
Yeah. So again, really cool. I'm sure. I was a little bit after Nirvana. I'm obviously familiar, but I'm sure there were a lot of people really excited to see that one happen. And if you were in the area at the time, man, I'm sure that was pretty cool to be at.
And it was a surprise thing. So I couldn't imagine being at the benefit. You're just chilling out, and then that just happened.
Wow.
That had to be pretty cool. And the weird thing was Flea performed the bass in his underwear again. At 65 years old. Yeah, it's that was kind of his thing. But anyway, a big basketball game today. The Ole Miss Rebels take on the Auburn Tigers. You want to look at the line on this game. You got Auburn's favored by 6.5 points. And that's probably fair. That kind of matches my prediction for the game. The over-under is at 147.5. So they're thinking probably somewhere around 78-70 probably in this game for Auburn to win, which is a little more than 6.5 points. So maybe that's kind of tells you where they're leaning. What kind of an atmosphere are you expecting this game? Were you at the Auburn game last year? Because that was kind of the first big atmosphere that the Pavilion has had. Do you expect something similar? Do you expect next level? What are you expecting today?
Yeah, I mean, I think, and this sounds crazy, but I really do think that beating Texas a couple of days ago was really, really big because I think it brought a little bit, they've been on that little losing streak. And, if you're going into a 4-game losing streak with number one team in the country, obviously there's going to be people there, but maybe not filled to the brim. But I think now that they won again, and that's a Texas team that's really talented, I think that's a nice win. I expect it to be an insane atmosphere. The atmosphere the last few home games has been pretty incredible. That A&M game was a really impressive atmosphere. I expect this again. It's number one team in the country on a Saturday at a reasonable hour. It's not one of those 8 p.m. starts. I expect it to be pretty crazy. I think I was there last year because I remember walking by Bruce Pearl. And I was like, man, he's huge. He's a big dude.
Yeah. Thinking about that, you mentioned the Texas A&M game. How good did people have to feel for Daven Barnes after that Texas game? I mean, basically the same exact scenario comes up that he did not succeed against A&M against Texas. He calmly nails 2 free throws. Ole Miss wins the game. They shouldn't have left Trey Johnson open for a 3, but they ended up winning the game. And you're right. The good vibes are kind of back in the program because, listen, if Ole Miss would have lost that game to Texas, you have number 1 Auburn coming in your place. And you have top 10 Kentucky coming in your place. It was easy to foresee a 6-game losing streak happening and your season going on roller skates. Now you kind of reset. You're 5-3. You're guaranteed to get through this stretch at least 5-5 in this race for 8. I think that win at Tuesday, I don't think it can be understated.
Absolutely. I mean, I think there is a big, and I saw some tweeted, there's a big difference between 5-3 and 4-4. You give yourself a little bit of room. But mentioning, you brought up Barnes. It is crazy how the ball finds you, right? Or the basketball gods put you in these situations. And Chris Beard talked about it too, where, sometimes it just sort of happens and it doesn't work out. And then if you work hard, you get the opportunity again. And then if you're fortunate enough to put the work in like he did, you come through. That was I love stories. I love those sorts of things. So that was pretty cool to see that work out.
Yeah, that was one of those situations watching the game. I felt pretty good about it. And the thing about it is the Ole Miss fans should realize I do not think this team has this season played anywhere close to their best game. They played really well against Alabama, but they didn't shoot the ball particularly well. They played really well against Louisville. Maybe that was their best game of the season. But if Ole Miss puts it together, I could see this team getting a Tennessee, getting at that level. They could. I think the best is kind of yet to come, especially if Matt Morell can get a little healthier. I know nobody's talking about it, but if come March time he's in a little bit better shape, this basketball team's going to get better.
Yeah, and that Louisville win has aged extremely well because they are very, very good right now. I believe they're in the top 25, aren't they?
I think so, and I think KenPom.
Yeah,
KenPom had them winning like 27 games this year.
That's a win that's aging very well. I do agree. Like we've seen really good parts of this team, but maybe not all together. That Louisville win that was pretty dominant, and it's aging well. The Matt Morell thing is interesting because I know he's out there and he's grinding. There's no question he's a tough dude. But there are moments. Again, I think it was a fast break a couple days ago where healthy Matt Morell is dunking that thing into oblivion, and you could see the hesitation. He has to lay it up. You can just tell that he is not 100%. I don't know how you get healthier during the year if you're playing. It's going to be interesting to monitor, but I do think like we haven't seen the best version of him yet. Mm-hmm. And I think that the best version of him is what really helps unlock this team's potential.
Yeah. Like last season, I think it was against Florida where he just kind of went off. And we've all seen that this Florida team they proceedingly got better during last year, and they're just hell this year. But he just went off for like nearly 25 or 30 points that night, and Florida didn't have a chance. Almost just blew him out of the water.
Yeah, I mean, they need a guy who, when the chips are down, they can count on to get big buckets to score. And he's been that guy in his career. His role has changed in his time with Ole Miss. It's really interesting to sort of see like the Matt Morell usage and how his role has changed and how he's been asked to play. He was a scorer, he was a volume scorer, and then he became way more efficient last year. And now, there's just so many guys who, they spread the wealth now. So that being said, I think that, there are going to be games where they are going to need him to attack and to finish and to score. And if they can get that guy, I think that brings this team to a different level.
And let's real quick, going back to the Auburn game right now, these are the keys that I think are going to be important for this basketball team against Auburn. I think Ole Miss needs to minimize the slow starts that just affect this team every single game. They get off to a slow start every time. If they can make the other team get off to a slow start, they can kind of handle things like they did against Alabama. They need to be competitive on the boards versus Auburn. They got blown out in the first 5 or 6 minutes against Texas, kind of played them even the rest, and they were able to chip away at the lead. And I do think in this game, just playing loose and with the knowledge, this is a free opportunity for Ole Miss basketball.
And again, I think that does sort of go back to having beaten Texas and getting to 5-3 rather than being at 4-4. I think with the potential of going under 500 in conference, this game probably feels a little bit different. Like you said, of course they want to win this game. It would be huge, but it's not the end all be all. So I do think that the win earlier this week did sort of change the, maybe the mindset a little bit to free them up a little bit, because like you said, if not, they're looking at that winning streak, maybe getting 5-6, whatever it is. I think the rebounding is, again, are they probably going to beat Auburn on the boards? Probably not. That's just not the way this team is built. Again, that's just, they are what they are. But like you said, I think competitive is the term. They have to win situationally on those sorts of things. They cannot get out rebounded by 20 or whatever it is. They have to at least keep it close-ish.
Yeah, and those 3-point shots that have long rebounds, they can go absolutely anywhere. Occasionally, they have to come off the rim directly at an Ole Miss player. Because sometimes, it just goes off. Against Mississippi State, that happened all the time that Ole Miss just was blocking out seemingly the wrong person and a 15-foot rebound. Anyway, thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen. When we come back, we'll talk about keys, our players that need to show up against Auburn, and we're probably going to talk a little tailgating as well. So stick around for that. Attending an NFL playoff game is an experience like no other. The energy, the excitement, the camaraderie with other fans is absolutely unmatched. I'll never forget the thrill of watching my favorite team, the New Orleans Saints, clinch a playoff victory live. It's a moment that I'll cherish forever. This year, Game Time makes it even easier to create those unforgettable memories with their new feature, Game Time Picks. It cuts through the clutter and shows you only the best deals on great seats so you can focus on what really matters, and that is actually being at the game. I recently used Game Time Picks to snag tickets for an upcoming playoff game, and it was such a breeze. I found a super deal that gave me an amazing value for incredible seats. One of my favorite features, actually, was being able to preview the seat view before buying the ticket. It was so helpful. Plus, with their all-in pricing, there was no surprise fees at checkout. And the Game Time guarantee gave me total peace of mind that knowing my tickets were going to be secure and delivered on time. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege, all one word, for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. So one last look at the Auburn game. Looking on here, there's players that I think need to step up in this game, and a lot of this is like, you know, it's a scheduled post at this point because Ole Miss needs these players every single game, it seems like. But I think that Dre Davis, if he can play like he did against Texas, I think that was a majorly good sign. He can help the rebounding. Ole Miss was largely competitive because of the intensity that Davis played with. Sean Pedula, as long as he doesn't turn the ball over like he did in that 3-game losing streak and shoots the ball fairly well, Ole Miss will be fine. And then Matthew Morell, we've talked about that earlier. The more that Ole Miss can get out of Morell, the better off they're going to be.
Yeah, and then I agree with those. The one that I might add, and this has been a pretty hot name the last few weeks too, is Malik Dia. You know, he sometimes falls in love with the 3-point shot, and I imagine that can be a little bit frustrating for fans because when he gets inside, he is really good. He is crafty inside. He's a big dude. I think they need some sort of presence inside, and I don't know if anyone else is going to be able to do it other than him. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how they use him. Because, again, yeah, he can make threes, but I don't know if that's what they need him to be doing in this game.
In this game, they need him to guard Janae Broom because he's athletic enough to do it.
Yes.
Yeah. But if he goes inside and handles that business, because Broom, he shoots the 3-point shot. In a lot of ways, Janae Broom is what Malik Dia tries to be.
Yeah, no, it's true. He is the best case scenario version of it. It is really true. So yeah, no, but I again, like if Broom, we know how good of a rebounder he is. They need someone to just sort of bang down there with him, and I think it's got to be him.
Yeah, and you have fouls to give. I would expect Bowl to play a little bit in this game because they need the fouls. They need to honestly do a little bit of hack a shack from time to time to try and frustrate Broom. And Auburn in itself, it's not just Broom. They have a legitimately good team, and it's going to be a hard thing. So this is going to take Ole Miss's best game of the season.
Absolutely. I mean, I don't think there's a scenario where we don't see their best where Ole Miss wins this game. I just think Auburn is they have proven that they are just so good at everything, and they are battle tested.
Clutch.
Yeah, they can do everything. It's not just Broom, like you said. I think that if Ole Miss doesn't play the best it's played, it's going to be a really long day.
Hey, you never can tell. Ole Miss might put up banners in their locker room and everything. So like, welcome to March Madness, all that, just to try and trick Auburn into think they're playing Yale or something.
I was going to say we're a couple months away of when things sometimes go wrong for Auburn. So, maybe if you can switch it up.
All right, so let's change gears a little bit. Keith Carter announced and Ole Miss announced what they are actually going to do in this revenue sharing thing. They're trying to make up $20 million. And Michael, I hate the term. It's like we have to make up $20 million somewhere. And it's like, okay, no, you're looking at this wrong. The players and the rev share is going to come out first in the TV contract. You're trying to basically figure out if you need a third secretary in the football office and stuff like that. You're trying to have the same athletic department that you had before. Like I think it was Trev Alberts at Texas A&M. He got the athletic director job and immediately like fired like 70 people to get ready and prepare for this. Ole Miss didn't do that. Ole Miss is handling this in a different way, and they're doing it by charging vendors in the Grove $150 per game for a 10x10 tent. It does escalate over that, but a lot of these tent cities in the Grove, it's 5-6 tents. It could be like $4,000 a game now to go because a person's not going to set up their own set on a 10 tent surface. They were counting on people to do that. I think this is a horrible thing. My idea is you do not mess with the Grove. The Grove makes sure that when you play the Citadel, there's 55,000 people in the stadium instead of having 40,000 in the stadium.
Yeah, I mean it's tough because there has to be more money, right? That's just where this is going. You have to find the money somewhere,
or you have to make the cuts.
Correct, and that has not been what they've done so far. Is that something that ends up happening? Who knows? We will see. It's going to be interesting to monitor, and I think a lot of schools are going to be monitoring what they have to do to make this money. But I can also, I think I can understand that it's going to be frustrating for the people who use vendors because obviously the vendors, if they're paying more, they're going to have to up their prices. And so everybody's going to get hit here, right? But at the same time, I can sort of see the aspect of, the vendors because it's my understanding they weren't charged for being there previously. And so they got their services used. They made a ton of money on game day. And I think Ole Miss is like, well, we should make some of that too. And so I sort of get it, but at the same time, it's tough. But I think that's just sort of the climate we're in. It's just like, you just got to make money and it's going to piss somebody off.
Oh, yeah, it absolutely is. And every school has gone through this. When Tennessee raised their ticket prices and Missouri raised their ticket price, it's just part of it. It's going to happen. That doesn't mean, though, it's a good thing. And my attitude is, if a person chooses to take the money that they normally spend on the Grove and donate that to the collective and watch the game on TV and have a watch party, you are no longer able to judge them. And at this point, there is no way that you can say there needs to be 65,000, 70,000 people in the stadium every day, because that obviously has not become the most important thing. This is all about rev share. This is all about trying to maintain the, for lack of a better word, bloat of the athletic department that they already had. If somebody chooses not to watch a game in the stadium and go to the Grove and just watch on TV and donate to the collective, they might be doing a more valuable thing than somebody that's paying the money into the collective.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to see how the priorities sort of shift and how Ole Miss sort of handles all of this. I think the Grove early next year is going to be fascinating to see.
Yeah,
it
really will.
To see how what the response is. I understand people are angry now. That's to be expected. Does it blow over? Does it get worse when people see what the prices actually are as we get closer to the season? It's going to be interesting because the Grove is the Grove. The Grove is a destination. I think when you start to lose that, you start to lose some of the Ole Miss mystique, and I don't think Ole Miss can really afford that.
And the thing about the Grove, and I joke about it, is it exemplifies a lot of the things that other outside fan bases actually poke fun at Ole Miss about. The going there to be seen, the dressing up, all of that stuff is in the Grove. Is that pull and the need to have the status thing, which a lot of that is that worth an extra $800 on a Saturday? That is the question.
It's gonna be interesting. I don't know if Ole Miss knows the answer yet. I think they're sort of hedging their bets here, and they're gonna see what happens. And if it doesn't work, then what's Plan B here?
Raise season ticket prices,
or make cuts.
Yeah. So it is what it is. It happens to be just, I don't know. It's a rock and a hard place is the best way to put it. Hey, you would rather be in Ole Miss's position than Mississippi State's right now.
Yeah, it's well, yeah. Yeah, no, there's going to be a lot of really hard decisions being made around the country over the next few months for sure.
Thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today, Michael Katz from the Northeast Mississippi Tupelo Daily Journal. He's going to be in the Pavilion for a pretty big basketball game. We know you're going to talk about that. What else do you have going on this week, bud?
I'm going to be monitoring the Senior Bowl because Jaxson Dart has been the talk of the town with his. He
got the practice player of the week.
Yeah. Everything I've seen has said he was extremely impressive. I think he needed to ace this, and he has, because there's always the question of, well, Lane Kiffin offense, this blah 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 blah. He's running pro style offenses right now, and he is, by all accounts, been the best quarterback there by far. So I know it's the same time as the Auburn game tomorrow or today. But I'm going to be monitoring that because I think Jaxson Dart's rise up the draft boards is going to be pretty remarkable over the next few months. I think there's a real chance that he ends up in the first round at this point. It's really trending that way.
I think there's a real chance he ends up in the top 10.
Yeah,
this is why I say that. Okay, Kellen Moore is likely going to be hired as the New Orleans Saints head coach. They had a big thing talking about the quarterback room's just all messed up. We need a quarterback. There's no quarterback. Jaxson Dart has come out of the Senior Bowl as the unquestioned QB3. So if Sanders and Ward are off the board, then it has to be Jaxson Dart. I think Jaxson Dart to New Orleans just makes a ton of sense.
Yeah, and if you're a head coach, you want to bring in your guy, and if that's his guy, it's going to be. Yeah. I think the rise. I've long said, like, the pre-draft process is going to be really, really good to him because he's going to nail it. He's going to nail the interviews. You're going to see the arm talent. You're going to see, the way that he can read defenses, the maturity. This was always going to be a really good time for him, and it seems like it has been just that so far.
His only landmine that he has, and it's not even really a landmine because he's going to nail the combine, is the combine. That's the one thing that could make him slip up at this point, because he's going to nail pro day, because it's going to be basically a healthy Trey Harris he's throwing to, which means all he has to do is get it in the vicinity. And his ball placement is elite to begin with. And yeah, I honestly, I get the fact that everybody's saying Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders. I don't know if Jaxson Dart's not at least a QB2 in this draft. I don't.
I think that conversation's becoming a lot more interesting.
Yeah. So we'll see exactly how it goes. Anyway, thank you, Michael. We'll see you next week, buddy.
Appreciate you, man.